이베지 조심해도 장을 젠보디 산제 신도메 대보와이 그건남다 신아시로
이나 구루라나 만달라 카미야타야미.
Oh yeah.
Please ask Rinpoche to explain the differences of the process and result when ascertaining the object of negation in point 1 and using the coarse selflessness of persons versus the subtle selflessness of persons, and then proceeding through the next key points. 강사기 다음에 내시 상위권에 강사기 다음에 드라마 되는 밥송아 강사기 다음에 드라마 강사기 다음에 락바양 된데 되는 밥 두기를 배스
그다 또 브라탄 포투르세 중앙에서 대 가사란제 제 수단 그냥 밥 두고 해 그것이 가시의 시주라 란제 랑신이 주어 땐라 밥에 티 제발에 때는 아니 또 특수가 요아래디 금바도 채소나 아니 그냥 가상한 줄라인 봐 선남민 봐 담보도 봐도 다니 또 받아 타마다시 군도 봐 제대라 아니 봐도 다니 또 봐서 란제 투기 제도 봐
내시 상위 거네.
내시지 버려. 내시 세대 그래서 원래 내시 참여 그 란제 두에 저희들 다된 두레스래.
네.
어때도 두래.
그래. 그래. 이 조탕 직방으로.
가자카가는 말도 직방이.
So yes, one can establish the coarse selflessness of persons in the same way. The procedure is identical. The only difference is that the object of negation in that one is examining is different.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Yeah. Then, if one accomplishes the profound awareness that understands the profound meaning and is able to negate the subtle object of negation, then what then is that person seeing or realizing or knowing? Zamudun tope yeshi zamudun tope yeshi dupsona dini kaza kansaki dame ganza gacha dramo gaksona dini ganza di la 카리 다기래 카리 독이래 카리 쉐기래 시기래. Does that translation? I mean, into Tibetan, sound right? Sort of.
가사 담으시나 가르치겠어요.
강사 때라 미데라 카리 다기래.
그랬으나
동기래 가리 동기래 가리 독이래
다 잠이 동반이 콘도 시티 가라 통해서 뭐 동반이 독이래 다 뒤제라 다랑 쇼가 나시 전에 동신도 아니 가서를 탄약이 찾아줘야 그랬더니 랑신지 동장 장매도 먼저 봐 랑신지 매나야매 아니 때는 매번 매줘봐 동바디 랑신 동비 가사되기 아니 타냐죠 아니 자체치투에 드적하니까 또 연구로 가지고 남산 또 말인데 또 한번 동간되기 어디에 또 연구를 했어요.
So then so a person who understands or realizes the profound meaning and then this referring to emptiness here or profound object emptiness, which is the negation, which is seen or realized through the negation of this subtle object of negation. Then initially the thing that they're seeing is emptiness. They're understanding that or realizing that emptiness. But then after that, subsequent to that, that understanding or vision or realization, then subsequently they see that things, though they are empty of existing as they appear, that is, existing as if they were objectively established or established intrinsically, all of those ways autonomously. Nevertheless, that although they're empty of that, nevertheless they're able to perform functions. They're able to, they appear and they're able to operate within causal relationships and do all sorts of different things.
Oh, yeah.
And this is not something that you get immediately. It doesn't happen immediately, but it takes some time. It's not like you, once you've understood emptiness, you'll immediately after that understand everything as like an illusion.
Sunya Kandu Nava, Tombanga, Ranchi Tombanga, Neva, Tobacoba. That Dicarasungo is an one us Sunya La Sova Didas. Dida Kandu Nava, and a Sunya Cheshin to Nava. From Melonda Cheshin, Teddy Jaba, and Melona Sunya and a Cheshin to Nava in town. Sunya La Sova Dida Kandu Nava, and Sunya Cheshin to Tombanga dis. Sunya Cheshin to Naya, Sunya Cheshin to Naya Tombanga Nevandi, Ranshi Meva Tobaina, Sunya Nawata Madruba Tortuna, Sunya Cheshin to Nawata Madruba, Sunya Nawata Madruba Tobati, Ani Ranshi Meva Tobaina, that this was a two young Muslim talk is. Soji Muslim Jiran, and the Soji Muslim Toba Yinzang, Soji Ranshim about Muslim to Toba Juve, and the Ranshim about Muslim Toba Casa de la Papa Yingore, and the Teta Papa Juro. That Mina, and this Sunyan Toga Mena, and this Sunyan de Ranshim about Mina Dinam, Sunyan Dinam, Ranshim Pechita Runyana. That part of Toba to cook.
So then a next question arises, or in the other, if one, this is a dialogue where someone else might say that if it's the case that if understanding that that a reflected image of a face is empty of being an actual face, then that sort of understanding, since ordinary people have it as well, then such people, ordinary people, can understand that a reflected image of a face is not an actual face. That the reflected image there is empty of being a face, and therefore, if that understanding was sufficient to enable one to understand the absence of intrinsic existence of things, the emptiness of things, then even ordinary people would have that kind of understanding, realization, and therefore there would be no difference between them and Aryas who have understood the nature of reality. And so that's one issue. But if that is not the case, that simply understanding things like reflected images being empty of the objects they appear as, if that that kind of understanding is not the understanding that things are empty, then of what use or what application do these examples of reflected images and so forth, how do they function as examples for developing that understanding of things as being empty of intrinsic existence?
Oh yeah, Dila Sata Sunya, Nawata Madruba, Dixon Shadra, Dila, to Toba Dila, Takasan Luntava Taige, Shijawale, or Jigit Tawoga, Tenekunji Tawoshe, Jigitoni Kayamba, Tenekunji Tomba Ni, see, or that shame. No, Kunji Tawoshe, or Jigit Tawoshe, Tenekunji Tawoshe. 这个当年看样吧，天天估计当年你现在看上去这个定个当年到啊天呐，俺你去现在定都，俺主角结瓦干巴了马个吧，俺去现在都的当把你当把主个人看上一个下一把，我的在都啊，我这个当年已经到啊到把不提，我现那么就定就当现那么就当年讲。아니 나르지 가자 가바게 쳐바텔라 때나 또 뉴바 아니 또 뉴바 샤라스 또 뉴바 샤라스 한테와 주다.
So this then this section of the text here is a discussion which says that that even if understanding that the reflected image is empty of being a face. Even if one understands that it doesn't entail that one understands the reality of that reflected image, which is the reflection being existing. The person, because the person who is seeing the reflected image still possesses the misapprehension of that reflected image as real, they don't understand they don't understand the emptiness or reality of that reflected image. So with respect to that, or on this topic, the basic text here says that first quotes a verse from the 400 of Aryadeva, which we've already cited and discussed previously, which says that one who sees a single thing, that person is explained as seeing all, seeing everything. The emptiness of one thing is the emptiness of all. That emptiness of that which is the emptiness of one thing is the emptiness of all. And we discussed it previously in the context of how once one has established an understanding of emptiness with respect to a single object, then or selflessness with respect to a single object, that without needing to engage in extensive further reasoning, one can apply that understanding to any other kind of object and understand its emptiness as well. So then the commentary that here says that someone who sees the emptiness or understands the emptiness of a single thing is able to understand the emptiness of other things as well, and that's been explained.
Yeah, that thing that's the one. 최신기 소년 최신기 동바도원이 최신기 소년 최신기 동바도원이 최신기 소년 아니 최신기 동바도원이 아니 소년 랑고 오니와 처바진비 된증이라 지 않고 말해是吧 어 소년 그 소년 최신기 소년 최신기 동바도와 되게 최신기 소년 아니 가서래 라신지 처바진비 준비
So the reason here, or with regard to that also, someone who understands that the reflected image of a face is empty of a face, that there's no actual face in that reflected image of the face, that sort of understanding doesn't do anything to negate or contradict the object which is holding holding this reflection to as if it was real. Here, the object of this misconception of the reality of the reflected image is holding a misapprehension which holds the reflected image to exist or be established by means of its own intrinsic nature.
这样没耐性是吧？中年前些个说呢，让现在出发准备真义先有水穷啊没办啦，而且中年让现在出来当把个当你到土个嘛的，没到的，
Without refuting the object of that kind of misapprehension, this sort of misapprehension of the reflected image is holding the reflected image to exist by means of its own intrinsic nature, and without eliminating that object, which is held by that misapprehension. Here, this is talking about the conceived object being, in this case, being the reflected image existing by means of its own intrinsic nature. Without eliminating that, then one does not understand the emptiness, which is the reflected image being empty of being established by means of its own intrinsic nature.
아니 수년 자신의 마주바 또와기 로티기 아니 수년기 되니 또바 많이 넣어 수년기랑 안토니 또바 말이
so that mind that awareness which understands that the reflected image is empty of a face, that there's no actual face within that reflected image, is not a understanding of the reality of the reflection.
야, 단디 가도 가르래서나 수년 나와다 마주바 스나 동반이 많이 받쳐. 나 나와다 마주바 스나 돈이 말이 뒤쳐봐시오. 대대 와라마 된다 정글이. 그러와 수년 나와다 마주바 스나 아니 동반이 많이 봐. 나 나와다 마주바 스나 동반이 샤. 나 뒤쳐봐 가르래서나 수년 나야 돼 차지 주년 수년 나면 시대 차지 주지래 비셔래. 그러봐 차지 주지래 비셔. 차지 주지래 비셔와 되잖아. 나도 라바들 수년 최신도 나와다 마주바 또대 가나 아니 수년 나와다 마주바 또 와래. 그러봐 차지 주지래 비셔와들.
저기 주
나 나와다 마주바 또 와디 나라시 주바 집에 좀 받대라. demba ngarashi chua na lo tela ani ngana wata machuba tawala ngarashi chua na wata machu tawale yinza ngana wata machuba de nelu tadu che sunyen la sowa chaji chuji lebi shewa teda la yute na wata machuba de ani tongi da ba mayin bache tongi ma dobe lo gi tigi ani kasore na wata machuba to tukure
No, Tony Matobelo.
Matoke. I didn't do so. Sunyan Cheshin now the Majuba Lodi, Sunyan now the Majuba Tori. Yes, Sunyan Rashi to know the Majuba Torres and Matore. Cocker now the Majuba Torio, could charge to the left Shewa in Zang, Nanzu Rabat now the Majuba Todi, now the Majuba Tos.
So, what's the difference here between understanding that a reflected image of a face is not an actual face, or that, let's say that the reflected image of the face is empty of being an actual face, that there's no actual face within that reflected image. And the difference between that on the one hand, and understanding the I as not existing as it appears. That is, so in the case of the reflected image, one can understand that it doesn't exist as it appears, that it is not an actual face, although it appears as an actual face, without understanding the reality of that reflected image, the final reality of that reflected image. In the case of when one is looking at a reflected image and recognizes or understands that there's no actual face within that image, One is understanding that the appearance of that reflection as a face is the result of is the result of one's awareness being affected by a temporary source of error. That is, a temporary source of error is something which affects one's cognition such that one perceives an object in a way in which it does not actually exist. This temporary source of error, in this case, is the mirror and so forth, which produces the reflection which someone might misapprehend as an actual face. But in order to understand that that's not an actual face, all one has to do is realize that that the appearance of that thing as an actual face is the result of this sort of temporary cause of error. In the case of and that kind of understanding that the reflected image is not an actual face. It is an understanding that the thing the thing does not exist as it appears, yet it is not an understanding of the final reality of the appearance there, that appearance. In the case of a person. In the case of understanding that the I does not exist as it appears, it's necessary to understand that the way the I appears is not the way it actually exists. And in order to gain that kind of understanding with respect to the I, it's necessary to understand emptiness. It's not sufficient to have the kind of understanding that applies in the case of the understanding that the reflected image is empty of being an actual face.
Oh yeah, that 되게 수냐 자신도 나와다 맞주바 또와 수냐 자신도 나와다 맞주바데 또와라 또니 또 미고와 텐디 니 아니 규미 대신 규미 따랑도 나양 따랑게 또바탕 똥바탕 메람진 람보 나야 메람진 람바 나비 똥와테 어때 중국어라 메람다 나와서 칸도 나와데 똥바 또장 좋아 규미다 따이 똥바다 메람게 메람도 람보 나와다 나비 똥와 또장 규마다 메람다부 또비스 그와 라신지 주바 나자 나와다 마주바 규마당 밀람다부 또비 우미타와예바 말에.
So the same thing applies to the other examples that are used in as examples that are used in the process of gaining understanding of emptiness. In the case of for example, the magical illusion, which is produced by an illusionist. In that case, then the stick or stone, which has been covered with some kind of special substance and then has a mantra applied to it, that appears as a horse or an elephant, yet that basis for the appearance there is, or the appearance itself, actually, I should say, is the appearance of the horse, the appearance of the elephant is empty of being an actual horse or elephant. Similarly, in a dream, and someone can understand that illusion as an illusion without understanding emptiness or the final reality of the appearance there. Same thing applies in the case of dreams. In dreams, there are occasions where we recognize the dream as a dream, and we understand that the persons or the things that are appearing in the dream are not actual persons, are not actual things. that sort of understanding that the dream, the appearances of a dream are simply a dream appearances, are not real as they appear, is not what is being described. What is not an understanding of the emptiness of the dream images or the emptiness of the illusory appearance that's produced by an illusionist.
Oh yeah, 이봐 많이 넣었어. 다 개발 대단 나양세. 수냐 재생이 동바 또와라. 아니 수냐랑 심해봐 또 미거봐 대단 나양. 아니 수냐당 김이 딸랑라서 아니 빼거봐 그 주장 가르래스나. 연장 대다 빼는 주장 가르래서 다 다지 대다 차지出去来比 세와 인장. 수냐 나요미다. 대다라 수냐 아니 나와다 마주바당 김에다 나와다 마주바데 또 나와 인장 나장 나와다 마주바데 아니 마주바데 또 그와 인장 아니 수자라 서위 띵도양 라심에 봤다 때라 빼봐 티잖아 아니 대다게 띵도 니 대다게 띵도 빼거바데 빼거네 때라 파나 아니 또 나와 인바데 다 뒤규자 송거리 라 연장 디다 뺄렘바니 수자서 최현남래 디나라심에 봐또 라위 군제지이라 또 라와데 가르고 최신도 나와다 마주와도 또 그야 인당 티게 아니 genji 아니 라신지 주와 나야 나와다 마주바데 아니 차지 주질레비 셰와 대다기 라 나와다 마주바데 또 라위 군제지 안 대달라 라신이 주와 나와다 마대봐야 아니 또 나와래 스들와 최신 남래 디나 라신이 봐또 라위 군제지이라 야
So then the text here says that that cognition, which understanding that the magical illusion and the horse and the elephant, the emptiness of these, and that the appearances of a dream, etc., are empty of being what they appear as. Even if you understand that, one has not obtained the Madhyamaka view, which understands things as like magical illusions or as like a dream. And then that leads into the next topic, which is that even though that's the case, the reflected image and the horse and the elephant and such, which are illusory, those are used as examples, and the reason they're set forth as examples in order to understand emptiness is that, and then the text continues here saying that, however, these things, the reflected image, the magical illusions and such, these appearances, are used as examples because it's easier to understand that these things are without intrinsic existence, easier to understand these things as being without intrinsic existence than it is to understand other phenomena such as visible forms and sounds and so forth. And that ease with which, the fact that they're easier to understand as being devoid of intrinsic existence is the reason that they're utilized as examples here. The reason these things are easier to understand as being without intrinsic existence is because Tagi Dugyugi Lepa. Tagi Dugyugi Lepa. The Zunyan
da Jumita so
So because the fact that they're so the fact that they're easier, the reason they're easier to understand as being without intrinsic existence is because they are the cognition that is apprehending them as real is affected by a temporary form, a temporary kind of source of error, something that affects that awareness such that it erroneously perceives the appearance. And that fact that the awareness of these things, that is to which the awarenesses to which these appearances are appearing, is affected in that way, makes it easier to understand that the objects of those awareness is without any intrinsic nature.
Oh yeah. Dina moni ji tube ranshin ji tomba ni sunyan la sowa moni ji tube ranshin ji tomba ni si ani yu demba trumna sunyan demba trumna truba ina ta sunyan rang nangzu khang yimba tele chashindu nang ina re khang nangzu khare yimba tele namba shendu lola chatu mirungwa re nangzu demba trumna demba yingore demba ina nanzu da nanzu tumba yungore nanzu da nanzu tumba yina ani kasare range nanzu khan yimba tele namba shendu lola chadu mirunwe na mirunwe chadu mirunwa na mirunwe teni gawa tena tuba yino ra sunya demba tumna ani nane tumba yungore inda teni niwo de gawa tena nanzu da nanzu tumba yina demba trumna ani nanzu nezu timba yum khang yimba tele namba shendu cham mirungwa le ani teni gawa tena tuba yino sita nanzu miduba yinza demba majuba.
So these the reason that's the reason these are used, the reflected image, etc. Because it's easier to understand that they're devoid of any kind of intrinsic nature. And these, regarding these, one can establish that they are empty of a nature which is established by means of intrinsic nature. They're empty of any kind of nature which is established by means of intrinsic nature. One can establish that because if these things existed, or if these objects, if an object is established as real, then it's unsuitable, it's improper or unsuitable for it to appear to the mind in any other way than the way it is. That is, it's the way in which it exists and the way in which it appears to the mind have to coincide. There can't be any discrepancy between the way in which that object exists and the way in which it appears to the mind. And by showing that the way that the object exists and the way in which it appears are contrary to one another, then one's able to establish that they are empty of any kind of nature which is established by means of its own intrinsic nature.
Oh yeah. Tena kasa jidena jumba trabi pe dinam. La jidena jumba trabi pe kola sunye gumeda milam jil ambola sawa. Oda dinzo jidena na jumba trabare. Jidena na jumba tra sa de kare sore sa taju kondu shaba nashi. Sunye nawa da mazo bade. Sunye nawa chashindu nanda nawa da majuba. Oda tedante sunye nawa da majuba de ani jidena ani tekwana ni loka machoba ke jidena to nyuba inzang. Jidena la trip chimba sikware. Taji imba sunye nawa da majuba dang de ani sunye nawa da majuba wala sunye rang chanyi zhuwa nawa da majuba togo mare sunye chashindu nawa da majuba tona ani sunye nawa da majuba togo re se yinze sunye nawa da majuba de jidena la trapi chimba se de 태권하니 로가 마쇼비 칸사기 아니 수년 나와다 마주바 또와 이제 질담발 잡지 봐.
So, regarding these examples that are used here, the reflected image of a face, the illusory appearance of an elephant and a horse and so forth, these examples are, they're understood, commonly understood in the world as being spurious. Spurious means something that exists, that appears in a way in which it does not exist. So these are commonly understood in the world as spurious. That is, they don't exist in the way they appear. And ordinary worldly people that have never even given any thought to emptiness, that haven't done any study of emptiness, they haven't paid, given any attention to emptiness. These people, all people that, or even people like that, understand that a reflected image of a face is not an actual or real face, or that they can also know that a illusory appearance of a elephant and a horse is not an actual or real elephant or horse.
아니 또와 인장 아니 티틴도 수년 제신도 나와다 마주와 또와 인장 아니 수년 아니 랑신 주와 나와야 마도 바디 수년 랑신 주와 나야 랑신 주와 나와 마 나와다 마주 바디 베티팅도 아니 다시 시와 나싱에 나와 인장 아니 토마 디다나 잡이 짐박디 짐 잡이 베디남 토마 랑신 메바 또바 또스 죽네.
So these examples, because they're commonly known in the world, it's commonly known that a reflected image doesn't exist as it appears. If it appears as an actual face, the reflection of a face doesn't exist in that way, or the horse, elephant, the illusory appearance of the horse and the elephant don't exist as they appear as real horses and elephants. Therefore, because that's already commonly established within the world, we can use these examples and one uses these examples to introduce someone to an understanding of initially. One uses these examples initially to introduce someone to understanding the absence of intrinsic existence of things. The fact that these things are already commonly known to not exist as they appear means that one can use them to understand at a deeper level how these reflected images don't exist as they appear, that they're empty of intrinsic existence.
Oh yeah, 就那是，今天的差别怎么？在他安那上些面吧，都是就那。我太多吧，太呢，安那今天呢，准备马扎吧，今天呢，准备马扎吧，苏着了说话，苏着了说话，今天呢，准备马扎吧，谁个人苏着了说话，那就当那就没对吧的。安那太可能你了，那个马学位看啥个多没弄吧？ 苏着了说话，那就他那是没定把刀把啦，太困难你了，那个敲下去搞个院长。天天今天呢，准备的马扎比去打苏着了说话，先那按照些没把刀把结果性。
So then, once you've initially been introduced to an understanding of absence of intrinsic existence, on the basis of these examples, which are commonly known in the world as being spurious, not existing as they appear, Then after that, one can, it's after that one then generates an understanding of the absence of intrinsic existence with respect to other phenomena like visible forms, sounds, and so forth. These things are not commonly understood in the world as being spurious. In the world, it's commonly held instead that these things exist as they appear, that they are so that spurious nature, the discrepancy between the way something exists and the way it appears, is not commonly known, and thus these other phenomena, such as actual visible forms and sounds and such, one develops an understanding of essencelessness or the absence of intrinsic existence with respect to them, subsequently to understanding the absence of intrinsic existence with respect to the examples.
아니 지대는 좀바 차비 소냐라서 소냐라신지 아니 동바당 동비 동니당 지대는 좀바 마드라비 수달라서 라신지 동비 동니 테니라 뭐지 좀바 거외스 네라 아니 지대는 좀바 차비 소냐라서 라신지 동바 땡라 밤니 티제서 좀바 마드라바기 아니 수달라서 라신메 바 동바 땡라 바야기 뭐지 좀바 거외 고아래 인장치 여기 가상 용타와 나신 가시 강경의지 티신이 동와 태영의 그 티신이도 통 세와다 아니 근데 여기 오지 그 따오가 되는 그지 따오인 세다 아니 지다 제제 다그 티신이 세와 티시 끊어 러자차 세라 소와다 비조 간들에 세나 뒤튼다데 간들에 세나 최지기 왜왜 최지그 돈이 또바나 최현 탐제기 돈이 무엇을 또바 공부 말해 스테고 돈바데 공부 말해 워낙 가르레서나 아니 최지그 돈이 또와나 아니 최현라 덴바유메 로가 쳐봐 잠지 말이지 준자데 참바 잠지 아니 돈이 between다래
So then so it's necessary to generate or to develop these understandings of the absence of intrinsic existence in this sequence. That is, the sequence here is that first one understands emptiness with respect to phenomena like the illusory appearances of horses and elephants and such, or the reflected image of a face, which is generally known in the world as being spurious. And then after that, one generates or develops an understanding of the essencelessness or a lack of intrinsic existence of other phenomena which are not commonly known in the world as being spurious. The reason that sequence is as said is because of the relative ease and difficulty of understanding. It's easier to understand that things which are commonly understood in the world as being not existing as they appear, it's easier to understand that they don't have intrinsic existence than it is for the sounds and visible forms and such, which are generally held to exist as they appear. So that sort of, because it has that kind of sequence, therefore, therefore it says that by understanding the emptiness of a single thing, a single phenomenon, one is able to understand the emptiness of all other phenomena as well. Because this is in reference to what's being discussed here, we're not talking about direct intuitive realization of emptiness. Rather, we're talking about a understanding of emptiness by means of reasoned investigation. And so in those verses that were quoted, like the verse that was quoted from Aryadeva just above, where by knowing a single phenomenon, one knows all phenomena. By understanding a single phenomena, a single thing, viewing a single thing, one sees everything. By understanding, or the emptiness of one thing is the emptiness of all. And then there's another verse that was cited earlier which says that if you understand the reality of a single thing, a single phenomenon, then one can understand the reality of all phenomena. That's the emptiness of all phenomena. What that is in reference to is, in this context particularly, not talking about direct realization of emptiness. Rather, it's referring to an understanding of emptiness through reasoned investigation. That and what the intention of that is that once you've understood something like a reflected image as being empty of intrinsic nature, then you can take that understanding and apply it to other things such as visible forms, sounds, and such, and understand their emptiness without having to engage in additional extensive reasoning. That's what is being said here. La.
Oh, Kancher.
I'm just curious because you're saying direct intuitive.
Yeah.
Realization. So is that for
yeah. Nursu tokpa munsum tokpa.
Kepa shose.
Kepa yorbes.
Yori.
Kapdila. Tony nursu tokpa kongba means.
Koi to nyung to mai dem do koi to.
Chushingi.
Ale ye. Chue xian tam je ge tong ji mo su to ba. Mo su to ba gong ba ming ji.
Thank you.
Is ba? Chue ji ge tong nyung mo su to ba na chue xian da ge tong nyung mo su to ba gong ba ma de.
Nursu tokpa.
Yi dang mo su to ba dang mo su to ba la ga je ba yo de. Is ba? Dan da de la to jan de yo de. Mo su to ba se na mo su mi na ani tong nyung mo su to ba na man zhu xie wa yin ba. Ho la den du na me ba. Is ba?
Kapdila. Oh, so I'm sorry, I misconstrued a word here, where it says, by understanding the emptiness of a single thing, that doesn't mean that one understands directly one directly understands the emptiness of all other phenomena. So the distinction here is between, so you understand the emptiness of one thing, like the reflected image of a face, that it's empty of being existing by means of its own intrinsic nature. And then once one has ascertained that emptiness, that doesn't entail that one directly understands the emptiness of all other things. Rather, it means that once you can take that kind of understanding and apply it to other things such that one can come to understand their emptiness without having to engage in extensive further reasoning. Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. The way me look at Chewa don't know by Tendo. That go was Sunye so now, now we tend to Tomba Towa Tang. Sunye Rashi Mando Tomba Chapa Chukuzu, that I should check about. Sunye Chashin to Nawatang, Chashin to Nawatama Towa Tang. Sunye Rashi Trua Nayang, Rashi Trua Tomba Niji Chapa Chek, or they somewhere. Chukuzu Tedana. Chewa Tedana, that Milam la Tersiene, Milam Genegaso, Milam Giwata, Pumes Nawa, Te Naya, Milam Giwata, Pumeji Naba Towa Tang, Nawati Tomba, that Tomba Towa Tang. One Jan Gaso, only Milam Naya Channel, Milam Dabu Dala So, says Yare, or Shido Combi Chiri. Milam Ganaya, Churtam, Milam Dandrava, Tawa, see, that Devana Triungudua, or Tenuode, Time Mindrade, see. Milam na Churtam, Milan Tawa Sumbani, 10 Michugo. Yagidi, Milam la, Ani Milam la Tessian, give out a permission now at T. Tomne, Tombatawati, Milam la, give out a permit to Nane, Tendrawati, Milam by Siene. Ani milam ki jawa da pime na wa de milam jawa da pime ko tongba te tang tongba tang tongba te to wa che dan dan di milam na chana ko milam da wo sa ra milam gi le ga so che tam je tong ni to wa de che tam je ga da shi to wa de ani ka sa milam gi to ni to wa ra re to ni to wa ma re sa na de ma ye si ko ma de na ga so milam to wa re sin du kon bi chen na yang 동반이나 신도 콤비 또지 아니 미람 그 내가라양 안에 최담자라 심에 또와요 와래 어떻게 미라래
미람냥 왕심에 바토나
또 비셔와 지와래
또 비셔와 지와래 디 미람기
미람기 셔와래 데 코라랑 심에 바토 바지와래 고 추나 말했다 저와 추나 말했어 장심에 바라 콤비 또지 안에 장심에 바나
So then then it says that it's finish that off that there's a sequence of understanding. First, the examples that are given as being empty of intrinsic existence, and then one's able to apply that to other phenomena as well. What that means is that one is able to that one is then able to have an understanding of whether or not other phenomena exist as real if one turns one's mind to them. To finish off that section, that then leads into the next section, which is that the appearance of things of the reflected image, etc. Understanding that it's empty of that object as that it appears as, and then on the other hand, understanding that a reflected image is empty in the sense of not being established by means of its own intrinsic nature. Those two have to be distinguished. It's necessary to make that kind of distinction here. And the text then explains that. Thus, when one in a dream understands it as a dream, and that and one understands that a man or a woman, etc., that appear in that dream, the appearance of that are empty of being a man or a real man or a woman. That's sort of one kind of understanding of the dream. Here you have, in the dream, there's a man and a woman, or a man or a woman or so forth appear in the dream, and one can have a recognition or understanding that they're not, that they're simply dream images, not actual men and women, but that sort of understanding. And then there's also then a passage from the ornament for the realizations text, which says that even viewing all phenomena, even in a dream, as like a dream, and other statements like that in the scriptures, then in those passages there are saying that in the dream, seeing seeing all phenomena as like a dream, they're taught in that way. Those two are not of this, do not have the same meaning. The second case here, in the passage from the ornament for this ornament for the realizations, that's referring to, in this context, to someone who has conditioned themselves to an understanding of emptiness. That is, they've already understood emptiness, and through meditating on it or habituating themselves to emptiness, they become so accustomed to it that even when they're dreaming, they understand that the men and women or the other things that are appearing in the dream are empty of intrinsic existence. So these two levels of understanding the unreality of dreams and so forth have to be carefully distinguished.
아니 이지 레비 시외왕기 아니 피면 많이 봐라 아니 이지 피면라 가서 미랑거 피면라서 나와체 개와도 피면라서 나 단단히 아니 이지 시외 레비 왕기 아니 동반이 샤라 많이 봐 아니 동반이라 콤바치 왕기 콤비 왕기 아니 이 가서 미랑거 시와라 동반이 나와샤와 So there's
two. The difference there is between someone who recognizes that they're dreaming, or that they're in a dream, and then understands that these appearances in the dream of the man and the woman and so forth, these appearances are simply dream appearances. They understand that they're affected by this temporary source of a kind of erroneous appearance, being the dreaming state itself is generating these images or these appearances. But simply knowing that the things appearing in the dream, the man and the woman and so forth appearing in the dream, are not actual men and women is not at all the same as someone who has conditioned themselves to emptiness, such that they, even when they're dreaming, recognize that the things appearing in the dream are unreal in the sense of being devoid of having intrinsic existence.
다 대신도 띵해서 권비 냠지 나와라 봄남소서 나와 남장 나와 남 강도 나와대 동바 도와탕 다 띵해서 권발라잖아 아니 띵해서 권비 나줘와 테라 랑그 냠나라 아니 봄나라 소와기 치단나 그 오강 나와대다 강한 냠나 요에기 아니 오데 아니 대단 되게 동바 강도 나와 되게 동바 도와탕 대남 라시지 마주비 이 봄남나 소바테다 라시지 마주비 두마다 강나와 되다 라시지 마주비 두마다 밀란다고 도바 이자 되미세베 라시지 마주비 두마다 밀란 나고 도와라 내누지 된 도바지고 와, 등을 관계 냠지 나와들 보나서는 저 강 나와나 나와티 동바 도와라 아니 동반지 대도 안 믿어 봐. 어찌 말이 다 대진사.
So then the text continues in a similar fashion, applying this to the appearances that arise in the experience of meditation practice when one is has accustomed oneself or has meditated extensively, developing meditative concentration. One has the experience of things, appearances such as pots and blankets, etc. Even everyday objects can appear within the context of that kind of meditation practice, of meditative concentration. And so those sorts of So there's all sorts of appearances that arise in meditation practice, this sort of experience of meditative concentration. And even everyday objects can appear in that sort of within that context. So these sorts of things, understanding that these the appearances of meditative experience are empty of being the things as which they appear. That is, they're not actual, external physical pots and blankets and so forth. Rather, and that sort of understanding, and then understanding that those things are like illusions or like dreams, which are not established by means of their own intrinsic nature. Those two sorts of understanding are not the same. Don't have the same meaning. They're not identical.
Oh yeah, to me the best. I don't just sort of tongue. That don't you do ma? Don't buy any. Don't buy any. I don't sort of tongue. Then you ne. You might have millions to top of Chava Sumbi. Star. You might have millions to top of Sumbi. Say, I need to meet this in Talant now at Matruba. I need Chitana go, oh, Natanam, Rashi Truba, Nayang, Rashi, now at Matruba, Jumata. So, oh, millions number 9, now at Matruba, Nashi, Chitana, oh, Nam, Rashi Truba, Nayang, now at Matruba. Oh, that is tender Jacores, Jumata, millions to top of Chava Sumbi, Juma Shin to Chatu Tumo, my body. That Kavala Jana did, Chatu Tumo Maibanam, Leba Jaba Chow.
So, therefore, since these two kinds of things, meditative experience, these appearances that arise, even though one recognizes that they're not actual objects that they appear as, and on the other hand, understanding that those kinds of objects that appear in meditation practice, recognizing or understanding that those things are like illusions in that they're not established by means of their own intrinsic nature. They're like dreams because they're not established by means of their own intrinsic nature. These two levels of understanding the nature of these objects in meditative experience, since they're not identical, it's necessary to properly get to the bottom of the way in which one has to properly get to the bottom to sort of find the actual clear foundation of the unique way in which things appear as like illusions, which is taught in the scriptures and treatises of definitive meaning. And these the way in which something being like an illusion, how it's taught in scriptures and treatises of definitive meaning, that's which is to be understood in the sense of like an illusion or like a dream. Ngedungi sunaptan tinshune ngedungi sunap
Ngedungi sunap tena toni tenji sunap tena sigarwa ngedungi sunap onbanyu anda toni tempis ana sunap jamdende ji sunap tang ti gongde ge tenji ne juma da milam shin do tobara chawa sumbi ani juma karare esa juma sede ani pe tumo mayimba 아니 가서 주미 대신 달란도 나야 달란도 맞주바 나신 치다나고 오원은 라시지 주바나 라시지 맞주바 주마단자와 밀람도 람보 나야 나와 맞주바 나신 람보 맞주바 나세 치다나고 오원은 라시지 주바 나냐 나와다 맞도바 어다 또바 차와 수비 주마 차주데 투모 많이 받디 어다 그래
So then, so it's necessary to really investigate this to the very basis, the way in which things appear as illusions or like dreams, which is to be realized or understood. That way of explaining something as which is to be understood as like an illusion, like a dream. That's the sense, the unique sense in which things appear to one as like an illusion, which is taught in the scriptures and treatises that are of definitive meaning.
Oh, 대다 제나 나라 마상이 나 메시게기 소년기다 치와 안 치와기 아니 멜론한게 최신라 최신그 소년라 최신주 증기레스 와 대 멜론한게 최신라 최신주 전바당 제나양 최신의 소년 최신그 동바 도고 말이 아니 저 메시 도고 말와 최신주 전바당 아니 그마그 아니 규명gen기 아니 담모하다 오디기 아니 가서 규명가 담모와기 규미 나와 달랑도 나도 삼바 어느 달랑 천이 받은 바만도 그런 달랑 천이 받은 거 아래 저 아니 밀람라 대시에 밀람인바 시비 밀람라 다다랑보라서 나와데 밀람인바 시에 마시게 그 가사되게 대나위 럽 칸진소라 아니 람봉어이 받은 그래 다숨도와 어때도와 어디기 아니 돈이 마도위 가사되게 아니 자신라서와 대가서 친나 치당고 치당 난기 오 탐자 라신지 주와 나와당 라신지 주 마도와 라신 주와 증바 다 전부 차와도요 말이서 장신 주바 다 맞아와다 뭐 대나신 전에 다비 돈이 맞도가 소수적으로 두스마자 그러나 달라 마자미 디 기미기미가 담아와디 안당함 미세 대나신 전에 돈이 맞도에 가사되게 라신 주바 나와 라신 주바 증발하자 그러나
So if one takes it like that, then if we can understand the way in which the example is operating here, in that. So, for example, if you have a child who's completely uneducated in the ways of the world, and they don't understand that the reflection, or they apprehend the reflected image in the mirror as if it was an actual face. And so forth. The other examples that they think the reflected images in the mirror are actual things, the face and the other things that appear in the reflection. So the uneducated children, naive children, apprehend them in that way. And similarly, you have someone who's viewing a magical show, and they don't have any kind of familiarity with magical illusions. They're looking at this magical illusion without understanding that it is a magical illusion. They apprehend the appearance of the illusory appearance as actual horses and elephants, etc. And then the other example is in the case of a dream, when someone doesn't recognize it, doesn't understand that it is a dream, then the things that appear in that dream, mountains, houses, and so forth, all of those things, they hold them as being actual things. So in all of these cases, they're similar in that in all of the cases, the different viewers of these different appearances are apprehending the things that they're seeing as actual things, when in fact they're not. So this part of it here serves as an example then for ordinary people who have not understood emptiness the way they understand or the way they apprehend ordinary things like sounds and colored forms or visible forms. They apprehend these things as real, as existing by means of their own intrinsic identity, when in fact they don't have that kind of identity.
Oh yeah. 가세 이렇게 태낭을 맞좀 받는 자라스 다 gambo 달라 창와 수년당 최신기 달라 창와기 gambo 달라 창와기 아니 수년 최신도 나야 최신기 동바 참아주 주마기 주마 중간되기 주마 캠보바 되기 커라 주미 대신 달란도 나양 달란기 동바 참아주 미람도 시에와기 가사 되기 미람도 남보 나양 나와 되게 동바 나와 되 동바데 미담바 남 시에와 남장 자데 와 데 난나도 소바 중가데 체 와, 어때 대신도 다 되나 자에 가나 아니 동바니 또왜 가사 그게 소녀 자신도 나 소녀 라시 랑거 찬이 주와 좀 치다나 공원나 저 친한 그 공원나 라시 주바 나양 라시 주에 동바 소녀 신도 라시 주바 나장 어다 되는 나시 전에 주마 신도 라시 주바 나야 라시 동바 밀람 신도 라시 주바 나양 라시 주바 동바 그봐 다 얘기 듣고 주보 되게 미담바 텐데기 밀람 시에 나와 태단테 미담바 시에와 남장 자디 니게 대권이 또 말해서 베이가 기타게 대권이 또 말해서 다다로.
So then on the other hand, we can also take someone, an adult who is educated in the ways of the world or understands in particular that that things like reflected images of faces are not real faces, and so forth. That so an adult who's has that kind of common sense knowledge of the ways of the world, or in the case of the illusory appearance of the horse and the magically created image of the horse and the elephant and so forth. The person who's skilled, the magician or illusionist who has created this, who knows how to create magical illusions, when they see magical illusions, they understand that they're merely appearing as horses and elephants, but that they're not real, actual horses and elephants. And then similarly with that, if someone who is conscious in the dream that it is a dream, when they see the appearances, the dream appearances, they understand that these things are not real. They understand the unreality of them as actual objects, external objects. They see that they're just merely dream appearances. So these are also here we've set up two sets of persons, one who misapprehend the objects as being real, the other set, these things appear real, they appear as actual or real things, but the second type of class of persons understands that they don't exist as they're not real in the way that they appear. But in both cases, in the context of the examples here, both of these are not people that have attained the view of reality. Because they haven't understood, the second case, they haven't understood that even though they understand that the appearances there are not real in the sense of being actual objects, they haven't understood that these appearances are empty of intrinsic existence. They're devoid of having that kind of nature.
다 진리 가서 그래. 나 이와 주마신도 체주 따나 땜바자라 따나도 땜바라 제 세타다니 공도 세워를 다 담보 같이 채 너네 같이 채 라시 주비 주세 라완도 주비 주세데 샤고발레 아니 테마 대샤주디밤 샤무도한 같이 찬 원해 아니 가라 잡아쳐 유당 정가랑이 양 매봐 자자다 정가 매배 디메 소위 나와 뱀빈자라 뱀빈양 채다인지 아니 규미태 말에
So this leads into the next topic here, which is showing that the way in which things, the actual, or actually first showing specious or fallacious ways in which people understand things as appearing like illusions, magical illusions. The first of these is this has different topics within it, but at first it describes that by first, if someone makes a mistake with respect to the limit of the object of negation, that is, the object of negation has to be defined correctly, and one has to understand the sort of border of the object of negation without missing, either including something that doesn't belong under the object of negation or not including something that should be negated within that object of negation. If one makes that kind of mistake with regard to the criterion of the object of negation, then by thinking that there's no person doing the investigation, there's nothing to be investigated, and there's no person doing the investigation, then one can have an appearance of things as being insubstantial, which goes in the direction of thinking that since there is no thing to be investigated, and since there's no investigator to do the investigation, then one arrives at a point in which one is not able to say whether something exists or does not exist. And then in doing that, one gives rise to a sort of appearance of things as being insubstantial, in a sort of vague insubstantiality. And this sort of appearance is or holding on to that as the actual view is actually a form of a nihilistic view, but it's not the meaning of things being illusory, which is discussed here.
아니 시행 칸라랑 말라 말레베 라오이 라오 요바게 같이 채데 레바를 마심바 뱅어에 마심바 아니 분발라서 요라 아니 리베 제디 아니 분발게 또바 분바마이 분배 시합 분바마이 분배 추 분바마이 다레레레레 제디 분비 차셔레레레레 바 제디 시와나 아니 분발 때네 민도 냠바 분발때는 민두냐봐 안에 당보충 당보지 되네 아니 정가라니라야 정가라야 태단 잡아 양양라가 차셔레레레 파 아니 시디 잠바 정가야 매방에 년게 그러마 태단 잡아 통네 매바름 년게 여바 마이베 정가 년게 여바 마이에 칸라야 다디 유당 유전 칸라야 정가당 제가 칸라야 디미지 내가 찾아매봐 내가 찾아매봐 손에 아니 랑게 나와 뱀빈도 상위 아니 나와 차바양 아니 랑신 예매당 나와 차바 대한다 같이 장을 말씀버리 생각을 되었다요.
So the way this can work then is that if one hasn't properly apprehended the criterion of the object of negation, that is the limit of the object of negation, which properly distinguishes between what is to be negated and what is not to be negated, and doesn't over-negate or under-negate, doesn't define the object of negation in a way that over-negates or under-negates what is to be negated. as explained previously, then if one doesn't properly apprehend that, then when one investigates an object through reasoning, such as, let's take for an example here, a pot. One takes that as one's object of investigation, and one critically investigates it. When one does that kind of analysis of the pot, and one breaks it apart, such that you determine that the pot is not the foot of the pot. It's not the stomach of the pot. It's not the handle of the pot. It's not the lip of the pot. It's not any of those parts of the pot. And when one breaks the pot apart in that way under analysis, one comes to the conclusion that that object, the pot, doesn't exist. And then, so one first has that kind of, that sort of idea of the object being non-existent. Then, when one does the same kind of analysis with respect to the investigator or the person, the analyzer, the person doing the analysis here, and one looks at the person doing the analysis and says, well, I'm not this, I'm not my this and that, all of the different parts that make me up, and I'm not any one of those parts, and therefore also would come to see oneself or the person doing the investigation or analysis here as exactly similar like that. And then one comes, having seen oneself in that way, as non-existent, then since there is not someone who is a person who has gained certainty with respect to that non-existence, in this case, then there arises an appearance of the things such that they appear in a sort of insubstantial way. They appear in a sort of a vague, sort of ephemeral sort of way. And so when one sees them, they appear in that way.
Oh, yeah. Because of that, now I tell you, then now I tell you, any rushing you may done. 아니 예매 좀 하지 버려 때는 총알이 저 당신 예매다 예매 마셔 버려 때는 총알 예매 아니 텐디 동바 예양 텐디 시바데 아니 텐디 까바 그 동바레스 저 텐디 시바데 텐디 까바 그 동바 예라 대나 대 도배 참여 나와 뱀비도 샤바양 아니 다 가서 텐디
So this sort of appearance, the arising of this sort of appearance of the object of investigation, the person doing the analysis, as insubstantial, sort of vague and ephemeral in this way. That sort of appearance arises in dependence upon not properly distinguishing something either having intrinsic existence or not having intrinsic existence on the one hand. That's sort of like one alternative thing, a thing either having or not having intrinsic existence. One is not distinguishing that from the mere existence or non-existence of the thing. So one has to make a clear distinction between something having intrinsic existence or not having intrinsic existence on the one hand, and something simply being non-existent or simply being existent on the other hand. Not making that kind of distinction, that sort of appearance of things as in the sort of ephemeral, insubstantial way arises. And that kind of emptiness also is an emptiness which, or that sort of void or empty state, is one void or empty state, kind of emptiness which annihilates dependent origination.
Oh yeah. 대당한 자위 나와 뱀비 따와 끼디 깨와 마야 홍도 샤바키 다 된다와데 우미주만 민주니 대나 진짜 대나 리베 째바나 아니 미유 가사소라와 가사소라랑 그 천이랑 거 어이 주비 유등도 대수 중세장 민두 그냥 바상 대라 때네 아니 지난 거 가나와 디남 뱀비도 차와자 나와잠 차와잠데 딱가와 말해 된다와 다 많이 빨래 연구를 가와 말해 와 가 민지 된다와데 아니 된디 나와 차야데 된다데 우미 춥다라메 우마위 춥다라메신 아니 라시 메비 추된비 최텐디 최 아니 최텐디 중세 퇴와 잠라야 용그레스 봐 라시마 보게 우미 춥다라메신 탄주위 춥다라메신 라시 메비 아니 추된바기 최 아니 중세 퇴와 탐자라야 원양 용그레.
So, therefore, because of this kind of appearance of things as being vague and this sort of insubstantial, as being sort of ephemeral, this sort of understanding of things, that even if one understands them as being that way, and through that kind of understanding, it gives rise to this appearance of things in this sort of as being insubstantial. That is absolutely not the meaning of things being like a magical illusion, which is discussed here in the context of the Madhyamaka view. So then it continues, the text says that, therefore, when one analyzes things with reason, or investigates or analyzes things with reason, when one repeat, and one if one then
대라때는 나와드나 뱀비도 차와서 까 말해서 텐더위 아니 뱀비도 차와대 텐더디 우미 춥다나 메신 아니 최담자랑신지 매바 땜바기 아니 땡점 최 아니 중세 퇴와 잠라야 텐뒤 퇴와 잠라야 용그래
So therefore, when it's not difficult to give rise to this kind of appearance of things as being vague, ephemeral, insubstantial in this way. This mere sort of giving rise to that kind of appearance is not difficult to accomplish. One can achieve this by investigating things, analyzing things with reason, and come to the conclusion that rikpe chepana ganza solo ranking murjupe yultingdu dutsu chungse kyang min dugo nyamba.
최 텐뒤 퇴와 탐제라 원양.
So thinking by investigating things with reason, thinking that persons, etc., that the person and so forth don't exist in any way whatsoever, such that they're established upon the object by means of their own intrinsic nature, thinking that they don't have that in any way, that sort of understanding of emptiness here, and then in dependence upon that, having these things appear in such a way that they appear as merely appear as sort of in an insubstantial sort of way, that is not difficult to accomplish. Rather, such as that is achieved, that occurs for everyone anyone who listens, has some kind of interest in the Madhyamaka philosophy, here specifically the Prasangika Madhyamika philosophy. They have some interest in it, and they listen a little bit to the teaching which explains the way in which things are without intrinsic nature. That can occur that occurs for pretty much everyone who merely has some sort of mild interest and listens to a little bit of this sort of instruction on Madhyamaka philosophy.
Oh yeah, that is Sumba Yanda be Duma Chakasani. Rashi Mebata, Mindam Jitan, but Nizo Yimbata Machietera. Yeah, it's a
So then, La.
Sumba Yanda be Duma, that Duma Yanda be Duma, said Nazu Chawa, Nazu Rashi Jua, now the Madu Jumate. Duma Yanda be Duma Chakasa de Kawades and Rashi Mebatan. 아니 명담지 태여봐 대 니조 임바테 나도 대송 거래 저 가서니 랑경오 주베 라시 말류바 크바탕 저 랑경오의 주베 라시 말류바 크바탕 가사다우데 라시 메베 가사라 소바 테니라 레 소바보다 제부 녀와발라 소발라 녀와발라 소반 조발라 녀와 안에 가소래 띵내 총대 대남수 조토비 니조데 아니 쓰다점도 송외 요 라시 메바당 아니 차제 태바 줘야 조토바기 니조데 쓰다점도 송외 우미다와 시도냐가와 이노
So then, so that sort of understanding, gaining a kind of understanding that imagine or thinks that things don't have any mode of existence at all upon their basis, within the object. Like let's take a person, for example, doesn't exist at all upon an object. That sort of misunderstanding of emptiness in the sense of thinking that things are vague and ephemeral, unsubstantial. That's not very difficult to arrive at. But on the other hand, here, the reason why, or the point why it is difficult to give rise to an authentic understanding of things being illusory, things being like magical illusions, is that it requires that one combine two things. That is, on the one hand, the absence of intrinsic existence, and then on the other hand, the existence of things as mere names. These two things have to be combined. So, non-existence of intrinsic existence, and the existence of things as mere names. So, the text here, that's the subdivision that's inserted in the text. The text itself says that the difficult point here is that one must negate without exception any kind of nature which is established by means of its own which is established by intrinsic existence, intrinsic nature. That kind of nature has to be negated entirely. And then, if we're applying this to persons, a person has to, one has to negate with respect to the person entirely this kind of nature, a nature which is established by intrinsic being or intrinsic nature. That has to be entirely negated, and then also the person, etc. Here. Those also have to be posited such that they're able to accumulate karma. They have to be posited as the experiencer of the results of karma and so forth. And one has to have a certainty or ascertainment of that, which is acquired from the very depths of one's being. So both the negation of intrinsic existence and the certainty or ascertainment that posits things as functioning as the accumulator of karma, the experience of results and karmic results and so forth, those two things have to be, one has to combine those two things.
Đó to be saying, Ranshi Tombe, Kansa Tella, Tomba Tella, and a less sober than Jovanyomba, and Sova, Tine, Tronde, and a job to Basi. Tender when Nizo de a young data sit to the cover, sit at them to somewhere.
So this combination of the negation of intrinsic nature or intrinsic existence on the one hand, and then the other combination of that with being able to establish things as functioning so that, like in the case of a person, the person is able to function as the creator or accumulator of karma and the experience of the results of karma. Being able to combine those two in a single, in a combination, and then extending that all the way to the very limit of existence. This aspect of the Madhyamaka view is extremely difficult to acquire.
Oh yeah. Now then, the lower mebatang. Tomba Karen tell you, Koani, she says also now what they say to Tadu to you, Kombatoba me. Lamzonala. Now then the Lua Mebatang. Now then the Lua Mikula then and Jebu Joy, Jebu Junzo, and a Jotu de Zamba, and a Ranshi Tomba Jometuba. Ranshi Tomba Jodugala, and a Gulatin and Jebu Jometuba. That he would or now then the Lua Mebatang. Tomba Kalen tell you, Koani, she says also now what they say too.
So then this is the same point is expressed within the three principal aspects of the path, where it says that understanding appearance as dependent origination and emptiness as the negation of all wrong views. Being able to integrate those two together such that they don't contradict, rather they cooperate to support each other. That's the view that's being explained here. And in most cases, philosophers are unable to, on the one hand, if they're able to establish dependent origination, able to establish things such that they operate in relationships, dependent relationships, then they're not able to establish them as being devoid of intrinsic nature. On the other hand, if other philosophers attempt to establish things as being devoid of intrinsic nature, when they do that, they're not able to also posit things as existing in relationships, that they dependent relationships and arising dependently. So being able to combine those two together enables one to cut through the net of wrong views entirely, and that's the Madhyamaka view, which is being explained here.
Oh yeah, kini namshi renjo meba jigjadu, tende milu tongwa zamni ne, ngashi yuji jindang guinji na, teze dawe jaba zowa la, sa songa na xinchani. Dan namshi renjo meba seyegana, ani gyula tene debu junjuki, ani dundeki namshatang. Ani kasore rashi ji tomba niwodi, tomba jodi, dundeki namsha jom duwa tang. Dundeki namsha jodi, tomba jom duwa, tende mayimba, renjo mayimba. Ani jigjadu jotuwa, jigjadu. Ani tenjin dewa chunga, gyula tene chuwe debu, ani chunga ki, ani tenjin dewa chunga, tongwa zamji, ani nge xie xie, ani that 제당망보 요에 지르데 유시유지 전당 군주네 안에 가사도 최대한 전발하시는 된쟁이 전당기 요에 군주나 안에 대제 따위 잡아 줘와래.
So then the next verse says that when without any alternation, simultaneously, one is able to establish dependent origination in the sense of causality and mutual dependence, that things arise in dependence upon causes and conditions. They function, they operate in relationships cooperatively. They interact with each other. And then simultaneously, then one understands emptiness in the sense of it being the absence of things existing as real, existing in the way they appear as objectively established, established autonomously, established by means of their own intrinsic nature. These two things, when one is not sort of alternating between one and the other, such that when one is establishing the functional relationships of things, one cannot establish the absence of intrinsic existence of things, and vice versa. When one's establishing the intrinsic lack of intrinsic existence of things, one cannot establish the dependent origination of things, their relationships. Then, without that sort of inability to coordinate the two, such that they work together simultaneously. When one has achieved the ability to establish them simultaneously, then one destroys entirely the objects of the misapprehension of the self. The conceived object here of the misapprehension of the self is this existing as if things existing as if they were real, autonomous, existing by means of their own intrinsic nature. Those are completely eliminated, and sort of even the source of that misapprehension of things is eliminated. Then it's said that one has completed one's investigation of the view.
Oh yeah. There's one. Leni karsa dina tendu tebe nala. Dugun oyo tombata. Dile dire chumai. Newa nimbo penye do keme bani juba kani. Dile ngoza juba ta. Dile medu chuma ka. So anashi chani. Dugun oyo tombata sei kana. Da kansala sobi cheogun, chinangu cheogun, rangshin ji juba tombata. Dugun oyo tombata. Dile dire chuma yi sirikana ane le soba bala tene ane debu dewa chuma le tene debu chuma dugu ngoye duba tan ane le tene le tan tela tene debu ane dedu kan chuma le gidi rwa kemi le tene debu dedu chuma ane dile dire chuma ni ngewa ni bo lende la du gewa la tene dewu chungwa chiwe tenjin dewa chungwa samba la tene arangshin ji chuwa la ngoza ane ngaba chichir pewa tang arangshin ji tongba yinza arangshin ji tongba la ngaba chichir ngaba nipi tobi ji arangshin ji tongjang ane gyule dewu chungwa la ngaba para chichir pewa de dile dide chungwa dugu ngoye tongba tang dile dide chungwa ni ngaba nipo penjin do ane 这个啦，去没些吧，就说是就双有关呢，俺拍下去，我对了，那我插话讲，对了，买的双就买的些的啦，就跟我要当把他对了，对了，穷阿姨，你把pension都开没把你出去吧，对了，我这就把他对了，买的穷啊康，
So this same thing is said in the praise to dependent origination, where it says that when you understand dependent origination, That is, seeing that things arise by causes, things when they exist only in dependent relationships. That is, things, if they're created by causes and conditions, they arise due to these causes and conditions. They arise in dependence upon their causes and conditions. That kind of dependent origination, or things existing in mutual dependence, such that if one thing exists, it's necessary that something else exists, and they cooperate with each other to exist. That kind of dependent origination. Likewise, understanding how when we create karma, that it gives rise to results. The experience of the result arises in dependence upon the creation of the action, the performance of the action. That kind of dependent origination. That, and then on the other hand, when understanding that, reinforces one's understanding that things are devoid of essence. They don't have any kind of intrinsic nature, intrinsic identity. Rather, they exist in mutual dependence. So understanding dependent origination then gives rise to the understanding of emptiness. And then on the other hand, when one is looking at emptiness, and seeing that when one is investigating the final nature of things, and seeing that the things don't have any kind of intrinsic nature, they don't have any kind of essence or intrinsic identity that would preclude them from existing in functional relationships with other things. Rather, it's for them to be empty, it's necessary that they be dependently originated. Then the understanding of emptiness, understanding dependent origination, understanding emptiness don't conflict with each other. Rather, they operate in conjunction with each other, such that they support each other, and understanding one gives rise to further understanding of the other. Then that sort of understanding can be 가서 딘도단 토니 치키치글 독수도나 치키치글
직조 누구모여 동바당 딜레디레 총아이 두 게딜라 때네 대우대도 중야당 율레 대부 중야당 아니 라신지 동바냐 라신지 양 동바당 직조 가나 윤대지 남샤 태베 라신지 동바라 고와 체제 줘야 라신지 동바 삼바가 규단 대비 남샤라 아니 고와 체제 주니 직조수 직조와
So then the understanding of dependent origination increases actually one's understanding of the way in which things are presented as established as empty, and likewise, and vice versa. That is, the understanding of things as empty enables one to understand further, in more depth, the causal relationships that things that causes, like creating virtuous karma gives rise to happiness, creating negative karma gives rise to suffering. So these two cooperate with each other.
Oh yeah, that didn't. I said that gachi chanona. 가치 창원은 탐작가나 아니 롱라달레 아니 주마 미룬촌이 다들 간데서 거래서나 대지 대권한이라 죄배 다 대권한이라 죄배 리베 죄비잖아 다 가상 가소래 시원한 신鲜네 산야다에 다된 자위잖아 년면이 죄배 대권한이라 리베 죄비잖아 아니 리베 개발라 소와 많이 봐나 아니 많이 봐대 가르래서 대권한 배나 가사 타냐다 왜 다된 자위잖아 많이 봐대 아니 가사 가르 고고 말해서나 가사 라시지 주고 고고 말해 가사 고고 말해서 대나지 개발라 소와 타냐다 왜 다된 자위잖아 많이 봐대 개발라 소와 라시지 주고 고고 말해서 개발라 소와 고고 말해서 봐 무거워 인상 다디송도 많이 반에 라신지 제와고 거기 제가서 강요구이 무거 바당 다 제와서 가나 아니 전체바 탐제지 동박시 제와서 관나 아니 제와 가서를 텐션이와 많이 봐 아니 좀 그러다 죽으래 인상 가서를 라신지 제와 가바당 제와 가바니 그 제바샤고 라신지 제와 가당 아니 제와 메가바 제와 좀 메가바 라신지 제와 다 아니 제위 제바당 라신지 미제바당 미제위 제바 대니 제바 시체고 다
So therefore, when one's investigating reality with reason, at the time one's doing this kind of investigation, here this investigating, examining and analyzing reality of things with reasoning, this refers here to if one looks at a thing and the way in which it exists designated upon its basis of designation, one analyzes and investigates the basis of designation to determine whether or not the designated thing exists within that basis of designation. And at that time, when one looks at the basis of designation, seeks the designated thing within its basis of designation, and does that kind of investigation, one finds that the designated thing does not exist within its basis of designation. It's not found. And so at that time, if we take the case of a person, you don't find the person when you search its basis of designation, as mentioned previously, and by not finding that, it doesn't negate, I should say, it negates the intrinsic existence of the person, but it does not. It doesn't negate the person entirely. It doesn't negate the person as such. And we can say the same thing. If it was to negate the person entirely by not finding that person within its basis of designation, then it would the person would be completely without completely without functionality. It would be devoid of any kind of functionality, like the horns of a rabbit or a son of a barren woman. The same thing applies if one's investigating reality in the sense of the arising of phenomena, things arising and so forth. When one looks for that arising and one doesn't find it in this kind of this rational investigation of reality, then that non-finding negates the existence of an arising, which is something arising by means of its intrinsic nature, but it does not negate the thing arising and ceasing and so forth in any way whatsoever. It's not a negation of any sort of arising and ceasing. Because if one negated that arising and ceasing period or as such, then the thing not arising and not ceasing at all would be non-functional, completely devoid of functionality, like the horns of a rabbit, or again like the son of a barren woman. And that, so one has to distinguish there something existing by means of its intrinsic nature, which is negated, as opposed to something merely existing, which is not negated.
Now, you must have some she live alas. Jeka Casana, Java Casana, now and you must have some she live a lot, 10 days, Chachatam Tapa, maybe Jun Sunday. What I attended Chawatum Jetaba, Jun Sungre. 사치 잡으로 잡고래.
Well, so then when it's not the case that that in doing this kind of investigation of reality that one negates the mere existence of the thing. It's either a person or in the case of phenomena, they're arising, they're stopping, and so forth. The mere function and the negation of things as even being functional. That sort of that's not what's being negated here, but instead, what is left over after this negation of the intrinsic existence of things is the appearance, a mere appearance of things as like an illusion, and within that. Which is that remnant or leftover after the negation of their intrinsic existence has been done. It's also the case that it's the case that dependent origination, the entire functionality of things is demonstrable, is valid. So. Therefore, if one isn't able to establish the validity of this kind of functionality of things within dependent origination, then there would be a major fault that would incur.
Oh yeah,
So, well, there's a passage from the 400 verses that describes that, but we'll do that tomorrow.
Oh yeah, dagi chinye sage gewadi tendan do wa kun la kan jaba ji zen lo san jaba ye tenben yin bo ren do sa ji sa shi me ji chu shi me da da de ra lin ji ngin de je san je shin do me de bo wa ye do gen nan da shi